So yeah, if you're watching this for whatever reason and you're not me, don't expect any don't expect anything spectacular. If you're watching it for just a guy who is talking about random stuff and mumbles a lot and the mic quality is not very good because I'm just using my headset. Uh, so don't expect much out of this. I've honestly, more and more that I do this, the more I realize it's really just for me. I mean, the fact that I haven't uploaded it at all yet uh, goes to prove that point, I think. Um, but I'm okay with that, and I probably will upload it at some point. Although it's a little bit embarrassing, I suppose. But it doesn't matter really. I mean, most importantly, I don't want somebody to watch this and just think that I'm like some random guy trying to make it big on YouTube and like just being a total bore. But as I say that, it's pretty ridiculous that I even care about that at all. I mean, who gives a shit? Like the 10 people that actually find the video and watch it for like 2 minutes, they're not gonna care, and I don't care either. You know, I mean, why should I? And that go. I mean, you can apply that logic to a lot of things in life, really. Because I mean, like if you're like me, you really try not to care what people think about you. And sometimes you try so hard that it's kind of ironic because you're so worried about what people think about you in that you don't want people to think that you care. It's kind of, it reverses back on itself. It's like catch 22 irony. I don't know. It's funny, the real best way to be is to just kind of, well, I don't know. I'm still figuring stuff out. I can't say what the best way to go about that is, I suppose. It's just, I don't, for, for one thing, you should not, I mean, I'm pretty sure you shouldn't care what people think about you or, what their impressions are, but at the same time, I mean, it's almost impossible to not care completely, at least for me. I mean, you don't want you don't want people to think that you're like a total weirdo, or at least I don't want people to think that I am. And there are certain, more and more, just like sometimes I'll look back on the interactions that I have with people, and I'll just think, how much of that was forced on my part. Not so much forced, but like I kind of even in the moment interacting with somebody, I'll like double check as I'm doing stuff and like reference it with what other people have done to like create acceptable behavior. It's like the things that I say and like the way that I respond to people. It's not that I'm trying to be cool necessarily, but it's like I'm just trying to kind of fit in, I suppose. And it's not the way that I want to be necessarily. I'd rather just be, totally natural. Just say what I mean and, act the way that I want to and act the way that I am. But I think most people are probably like that. Or well, maybe they're not. I don't know. But when it comes to me, um, there's really a small amount of people that I'm just totally, genuine with, I think. Unfortunately, I wish that wasn't the case because I try to be as just honest and kind of, especially recently in my life, these last couple of years as I've kind of grown up and matured a little bit. I just I try to be as honest and just I don't even know the word, just as real as possible. You know, I don't want. I'm totally like just gathering grass randomly and stuff. By the way, I'd have like 2.5 stack or a stack and a half of grass. Obviously, way too much, and I need to make a fire. Again, this video is mostly me rambling, and so I'm gonna be really bad at the game. Same with Binding of Isaac, but okay, kind of got derailed there. What I was trying to say is, let's not build it yet. The way that I want to interact with people is how I interact with the people that I'm closest to, like my girlfriend and a close selection of friends that I honestly, and this is a whole other like story and something to talk about, but I haven't really had a group of strong friends for a while. And in high school I had Nathan and Simon, and in middle school, I had Fuzzy and those other guys, and then obviously Montessori, Jack and Drew and Isaac. Uh, but as you move and as you change schools and as you change as a person, the friends that you have change. And after I left high school, I was kind of on my own for a while, and I had a group of online friends, a couple actually, and that kind of how do I cook this? I'm pushing left, but that moves me. Oh, that's right. My controller's all jacked up. That's another thing to talk about, by the way. I'm kind of disappointed in this controller, and I need to figure out what's up with it. But as far as friends go, that's what I was talking about. I haven't had a group of real life friends in a while, or online friends for that matter. Because when I met my girlfriend, I kind of just stopped talking to my other friends because like I didn't really need them. I know that sounds really rude and wrong, but I'll elaborate on that later. Plus, things were kind of awkward with this one girl that I was kind of into, and then there was this other girl. Anyway, it was all kind of an awkward, weird situation. Again, I'm harvesting grass. I do not need grass right now. But anyway, so what was the point I was trying to make? I need a machete. Fuck, I can't remember what the whole point about. I was talking about my friends because yeah. So those groups of friends that I did have, when I was with them, I was just very much myself. I would just say the things that came into my mind, and I wasn't rude necessarily, but I didn't have those filters that you have with um, the people that acquaintances and strangers and stuff. Honestly, I think that is a good way to live in general. Not necessarily having zero filters, but not worrying about everything that you say, to even a stranger. You should be. I think that's the people that really enjoy other people's company are, well, the company that they enjoy are just people who are, really genuine and honest. And what's funny is sometimes I try so hard. Again, it's irony, but I try so hard to be that kind of genuine and genuine, honest kind of person that I, end up worrying so much about what people think, and then it becomes very disingenuous as a result. Because I'm trying too hard, and therefore it's not natural, and therefore it's not who I really am. But when it comes to people that I've known for a while, my girlfriend especially, it was like this with her from the very beginning, which is not how it usually happens. But uh, it's just conversations are natural, and I don't worry about what I'm saying. You know, whereas with any kind of stranger or anybody that really anybody except for my girlfriend and like my younger brother and my younger sister and my mom and my dad, really, and my grandparents to a certain extent. Although I monitor myself a little bit more around them. Uh, Man, my inventory's full. I'm gonna eat these berries. Uh, yeah, it's like it's hard, and I don't think anyone is like. Well, there probably are people, and good for them, but to be totally open with strangers is difficult. But that's what I try. That's what I strive for because I think that that's just the best way to live. But like I said, it's hard sometimes, and you end up trying so hard that it kind of defeats the purpose. But so that's something I'm still trying to figure out, I guess. Uh, as far as this controller goes, I know it's a tangent, but that's about all I had to say on that matter. Um, oh shit, was that bad for me? I thought you could eat these things raw. Oh, my bad. Um, but okay, need a science machine for that. I don't think there's any gold on this island. I'll take another look. This controller, I bought it at a Target. It's a Logitech F310, and it was working fine for like a week or so. And there's a whole lot of weird settings. There's like different input modes, and then another set of input modes on top of the input mode. I know it's confusing, and that's part of why I'm having so much trouble. But I've tried calibrating it, but for some reason when it's on, so there are two different modes. There's one where you use the D-pad as what you would normally use your control stick for, so it moves your character around, and that's what I'm using right now. Because when I try to use the actual control stick, it's constantly pulling to the right, and I have no idea why. Unless there's something fucked up on the inside, it's like totally normal on the outside, and plus I haven't thrown it or dropped it or anything, so really I have no explanation as to why that is. So currently the control stick is acting as a D-pad, uh, which makes it a little bit awkward, obviously, because it's not locked to four directions. So you can potentially mess something up, like I might drop this coconut instead of eating it, or like plant it instead of eating it, so there's a lot that can go wrong. Um, or like if I wanted to try to drop something poisonous, I might eat it on accident. So it's been largely disappointing. I'm not sure what's wrong with it, but I'm gonna take a look. I downloaded the drivers in case that was the issue, but no luck on that. I'm gonna try and get some limpets before the sun goes down, because then I can cook them on the fire. Oh, nope, no limpets there. Do you get gold from limpet rocks? I'm not sure. I feel like maybe you do, because the trade-off of not growing any limpets, you know, you kind of get gold as a reward. Nope, no luck. Well, you did get a couple of flints anyway. Alright, well, I guess we're going hungry. Unless you can cook coconuts, I'm not sure. I don't think you can. But we shall see. Doesn't look like it. Oh, that's alright. We'll plant them. It is Earth Day, or it was yesterday. I'm recording this at like 2 in the morning. But so yeah, I don't know what the deal is with the gamepad. Like I said, I tried to calibrate it, and actually, having just said this, I think I've just had an epiphany, because when I was trying to calibrate it, during the calibration, it tells you, you know, move the directional stick to all four corners, and so when I'm not touching it at all, it's actually the little crosshair, you can see it moves around, is pulled up and to the right, which makes me think that there's obviously something wrong with the sensor, because it, you know, it's like that from the beginning, even in the calibration menu. So clearly it thinks that the stick is being pulled even when it's not, which is fairly obvious, but I hadn't really thought about that until now. I'm gonna organize my inventory a little bit real quick. Put the tools together, get the resources together. There we go. Alright, what do we need? Definitely don't need grass. Could do with a couple more logs, I suppose. Might as well. And so that calibration thing, I'm thinking we need to build a raft and get out of here. Try and find some gold. I'm getting kind of hungry too. I need some more limpets and not eat them raw. I don't know how you fish mussels. That'd be good. You can kill snakes too, I think. Oh yeah, and seaweed you can eat. Seaweed's good. So, yeah, and what's weird is with the calibration, like, the first thing that it asks you to do is push a button when, with your stick untouched, so the controller totally untouched. Now you would think that even if you were pulling the stick, like, you know, to the left or something, and then you did that. What are you doing? Are you going to bed? Okay. Alright. I feel a little bit weird with you listening. I don't know, it's embarrassing. No, it's fine. I'll just try and pretend you're not here. How long have I been recording? Okay, so like half an hour. I'll keep going for a little bit. Are you gonna try to go to sleep? Okay. That's okay. I'm sorry I got angry. I'll come, but when I'm done, I'll come cuddles and we can watch a show or something, and then I'll let you go to bed. Okay. What was I talking about? My controller? Uh, so, sorry, as I was saying, um, you would think that, you know, like with the calibration, so you're calibrating it. So if you were pulling the stick, like to the left, say, and then you lock that in, then, like, that would be the device would assume that that position was the center. Therefore, if you were to move it to the right, it would be more towards, like the center, because you centered it when it was pulled to the left. Well, so if the stick is in the right position, oh look, gold. That's what we were after. If the stick is fuck, anything in the game just totally derails my train of thought. Oh look, monkeys. Hello, monkey. I'm a monkey. Uh, so so imagine that there's a problem with the actual sensor inside the controller. Like that's kind of a worst case scenario, but when you go to calibrate it and you're not touching it, it should have that pulling to the right motion because it thinks that it's permanently like that, set as the center. But it doesn't work that way, because in the next screen, when it tells you to move the stick to set it up, why can't I pick that up? Oh, my inventory's full. I will eat some seeds. It still shows it pulling to the right, even though logic would tell us that ooh, treasure. Hey, it's not too far either. We'll have to get that. Oh, don't need this bottle. Logic would tell us that sweet potatoes are good. Actually, they grow in abundance as well. Well, I say that there's only one. Usually, there's like this whole area is full of them. That sucks. I'm kind of getting hungry too. I need to start looking for food. Why is my sanity going down like crazy amount? Is it because I'm wearing a hat? No. Oh, I don't know what's going on. Is it because I'm wet? I'm not like soaking wet. Oh god, I don't know what's going on. I'm gonna build a fire because I'm quickly losing sanity. I just realized. Maybe if I dry out completely. I sure hope so. Because I don't know what the fuck's going on here. Anyway, so I don't know what more to say about my controller woes, but it's kind of strange. Yeah, I guess. Oh, that's weird. I guess it was the water because it went around. It went away around the same time, but it wasn't exactly, which is kind of weird. There's still the icon of the wetness up there when the sanity stopped dropping. I don't know. At least it's not the hat, because I'd hate to take the hat off. Anyway, what else to talk about? I ordered a ice cube tray today. That's interesting. Huh. Oh shit, that's not good. I should not be out on the sea when the sun is setting. That's not wise. What else to talk about? I'm not sure. I might build a fire and call it quits there, because I don't really know what else to talk about. Monkeys, maybe. Monkeys, pretty cool. Um, I mean, if you think about, the evolution in general is pretty amazing. But the fact that, we evolved from monkeys is Pretty interesting. I mean, you look at all the various species, and it's pretty amazing. And I would like to know just exactly how it works. For instance, what kind of monkey did humans actually evolve from? I'm pretty sure it was gorillas, or a kind of something. But that raises further questions such as where did gorillas come from? I'd like to have a chart that shows like the whole process, like a tree, and how it splits off into various subspecies. Because I mean that's pretty fascinating. If you think about all the different kinds of I mean all creatures really, but speaking of just monkeys, because there's monkeys on the screen. Uh, I mean all sorts of marsupials. There's a crazy amount. Uh, and like I said, that can be applied to any creature, but we're talking about monkeys because I'm playing a monkey at the moment, and I kind of feel like a monkey. But oh, this part's flooded. That's not good, and I'm getting wet. Soon my sanity will drain. But yeah, I'd be curious to see, how it all branches off, and what was the first monkey like, you know, or I'm sure it's more complex than that, but oh wow, look at this, it's like a water beefalo. Wow, that's pretty cool. Chinese New Year, I was born water buffalo year. Not sure how that works, but that is a fact. Oh look, magma stuff. Why can't I mine that? Usually you can mine those. It's weird. They've changed that. Oh, that's right. You need a hammer, don't you? Oh, speaking of which, I haven't built the frickin' science machine that I set out like a long time ago to build. Sheesh. Alright, anyway. Evolution. We're building a science machine, and now we're smart. We can build a shovel. Of course, my shovel's useless on this volcanic island, but we have it for when we need it. And this island is actually a great source of gold because you have these magma piles, and there's a lot of them, and they all have gold in them. Well, the ones with gold have gold in them. In case that wasn't self-evident. But yeah, monkeys, man. Pretty neat. Pretty neat stuff. Evolution itself, pretty amazing. And obviously I don't fully understand it. I'd like to know more. Because, it raises a lot of interesting questions about how certain species have come to be. One interesting theory that my grandpa always tells me about is the whole aquatic ape deal. And I mean, if you think about it, it does make a lot of sense. Because, the theory basically posits that as... Oh, that's weird. Why am I digging up sand? Why did I even want a shovel? I don't remember. Why do I have two pickaxes? Oh, this is such a mess. Okay. Anyway, the whole aquatic ape theory, which is very fitting, I might say. I didn't even realize this, but we are an ape on a desert island. Well, not an ape, monkey. But oh, you use a shovel to dig these things. Maybe that's why I wanted a shovel all along. The old left brain, right brain. Right brain's telling me something. Now, these can explode, which is dangerous. So you gotta be a bit careful. Anyway. So monkeys, or apes, the whole aquatic ape thing, again, trying to get to this. But it's hard, because I have a lot of distractions. But and I'm trying to get it straight in my head because I can't think very well, and my memory of this is fuzzy to begin with. But the whole idea is, if you think about predators, right? I mean, imagine you're a primordial human. You know, you have a lot of intelligence. Your brain is still like much bigger than any other animals. But, you know, you haven't invented language yet, therefore you can't really put your thoughts into organized order. And that's another thing I want to talk about, but that's a whole different subject. Anyway, you know, so there's really no some people. So the oof, the other side of the argument. I'm gonna cut all this babbling out, but the other side of the argument is that, you know, humans evolved to walk upright because it allowed us to see predators in the savannah, like in the desert. And my argument and my grandpa's argument against that is, well, okay, so I'm going to start. I need to hop out and cook these limpets. Um, fuck, I just ate it raw. Okay. So imagine you're a human and, you know, you evolve through natural selection the ability to stand upright so that you can see, you know, wild cats creeping up on you. And, you know, to be fair, cats prefer to have the drop on something. So when they, you know, often people in those areas where there are tigers and stuff will wear masks with eyes on the back of them, because that discourages them. I don't know how true that is. I think I read it on some like BuzzFeed shit, but I digress. But really, I mean, what advantage does being able to see a tiger creeping up on you really offer you in terms of defense? I mean, if that tiger wanted to kill you, it could, you know. Humans, I mean, even if you imagine a gorilla in that situation, they're strong. They're strong as hell. But, I mean, a tiger is, you know, 500 pounds of muscle and teeth and claws. So, you know, unless we have, like, sophisticated tools, and let's be honest, like, a spear won't protect you that much from a freaking lion or a tiger in the jungle. So, what's the best defense against something like that? You know, you gotta think, you know, you don't have a gun. A spear, a club, whatever, they're better than nothing, but really, against a giant animal with fangs and claws is not going to disable it necessarily. So, imagine you're by a riverside or by a lake or by the ocean. And imagine if you see a tiger coming, looking for its prey, and you are its prey. Imagine if you could just swim out into the ocean away from where it can get to you. So, I mean, tigers can't swim, obviously, and there are, you know, ocean predators too. But really, can like on the shoreline, there's not a whole lot of like sharks or anything, and sharks wouldn't really prey on humans anyway. So, you know, think I think a tiger's combat effectiveness is severely reduced when it's having to swim and keep itself afloat. Plus, you know, the whole stigma of cats don't like water. And I really don't think that they would swim out into deep water. But humans are, you know, naturally very good swimmers. And so the whole idea is that we evolved, and there are characteristics that really, like, kind of go to prove this. For one, we have, you know, excess fat along our um, you know, stomachs and you know, for insulation. more so than other animals, which is the distinguishing factor to point out. You know, most animals don't have the kind of stores of fat that we have, except things like polar bears, seals, sea lions, things that actually swim. And that's because, when you're out in the cold water, you need that insulation. And, that's something that tigers don't have. They're all lean muscles, so they can't stay out as long. They, hypothermia. And the whole, I mean, this is kind of barbaric, but if you tossed a baby into a swimming pool, it would naturally hold its breath. It's a part of its biology. And I can't remember, there's only like a few mammals that have that. Cannot remember what it's called at the moment, but it's the name of. Oh, I just got hit in the head with a coconut. How comic. Anyway, the babies, even from infancy, they have the natural ability to hold their breath when they're underwater, and that is a reflex that's unique to a few mammals. Obviously, it's well, I was gonna say it's. This is gonna sound stupid. I was going to say, obviously, with fish, it applies to all of them, but fish don't hold their breath when they go underwater, I don't think. But it's unique to mammals in that I think it applies to dolphins, humans, and like something else I can't remember. But that goes to show, natural swimming um, tendencies. And, there's just a lot to support the theory that we're not necessarily deep sea swimmers, but we would wade out maybe, to like kind of relatively deep water, or even, I mean, even if you're just waist high, I think you have a significant advantage over, a lion or a tiger. They're not gonna go wading out into the water. Plus, they're low down, so the whole standing up thing actually does give you an advantage there, being taller, because you can breathe above water while the other animals are. Oh fuck! I'm gonna starve. I forgot the name of the game. I was trying to get wood to get a raft so that I could go and eat some seaweed, and I forgot what I was doing. That's a shame. But we'll see if we can pull this back. Anyway, uh, so yeah, that's an interesting theory, and I think that there's a lot of evidence to support it, really. And I think it makes more sense than just to say, humans evolved upright capabilities in order to see the predators coming at them. Because, like, really, what advantage does it offer? Being able to see your imminent death. Congratulations. It doesn't help you breed, therefore pass on your genes. Uh, what was that other thing? There was a point after that I was going to make that kind of branched off of that idea, but I can't quite remember. Something about evolution, maybe. It's cool stuff. I mean, really, the whole theory of evolution is it was revolutionary in the time, but it just makes perfect sense when you think about it. Because obviously there are mutations in DNA, that's a proven fact. And when some of these mutations could be beneficial to an organism, it is more likely to pass along its genes. But, okay, so I did remember what I was going to talk about. My question is, some of the, what kind of, how does it work? Because obviously it's caused by mutations, right? But, like, what kind of really significant mutation? Because, like, okay, imagine evolving the use of webbed hands, like for ducks or something. I don't know. But, the ability to swim faster. So, the first evolution of that, I mean, I can't imagine that they just, one day one wakes up with perfectly webbed fingers. Like, no, it happens gradually. So, how does one organism that happens to evolve slightly webbed hands, how does that enable it to pass on its genes easier? It doesn't really. So, like, say you get lucky and that guy mates with a couple of people, and then the genes are passed on. But how is that mutation strengthened? Like, I mean, I understand that the whole idea of natural selection is that a creature more suited to its environment is more likely to uh, reproduce. But what I don't get really is that unless it's like a really significant change, i.e., um, uh, like one day waking up with or having a baby that has perfectly webbed toes, and therefore it's like top of the frickin' pack. Uh, it stands a much better chance than anything else, and therefore it mates with like 20 females instead of the usual one, or something to that regard. And then it's exponential. But I don't really see how a duck or like a bird that has slightly webbed fingers has a huge advantage over just a regular one. So obviously evolution is really gradual, but I don't understand how like one little mutation, unless it happened to a whole bunch of things at the same time, I don't see how that can propagate to multiple members. It's interesting. It bears thinking about. And obviously, I don't really know that much about it, but I'd like to. I tell you what, it kind of stinks because as I've grown up, I've just had a real appreciation for learning stuff, and I love watching instructional videos, learning how things work, like machines and all sorts of things. In biology, man, it's just so fascinating. Like the college biology course I took was freaking awesome. I mean, you know, obviously there's the boring parts too, but like the inside of your body is such an intricate system. There's just decades and decades of research on it, and all these little amazing, tiny microscopic mechanisms that I mean, imagine the most complex machine ever, and like it's even more complex than that. It's just absolutely incredible stuff. Um, but I did not have that passion or that desire or even that appreciation for that learning when I was in school, which kind of stinks, you know? I mean, if in high school I had the kind of interest that I have now, I would have done like infinitely better because I mean, I would actually like to take a high school biology course. Well, not high school. That's the thing. High school they teach so slow and in a way that's not interesting most of the time. I think our teachers are way underpaid for one thing because they sh- they should be given all the resources that they need to create a learning. I mean, it's such an important thing, educating people. And obviously, there's a lot of political and you know all sorts of shit that goes into that decision making, which I won't get into. But mostly because I haven't really thought it out very well. But it's like the whole teacher thing. It's important. And I'm waffling because I can't remember what my point was. Um, but you have underpaid teachers who, unless you have a real strong passion for what you're doing, if you're not getting the appreciation, and the resources and the time and the money, you're not gonna invest your heart and soul into it. I think that applies to almost everything in the world. You need some sort of return on your investment when it comes to anything. I mean, a teacher might start out as like the most, um, really wants to make a change in the world and just be, you know, do like the best job that he possibly can. And so, even from like a young age, say, they're really just passionate about teaching, and they spend their whole life studying how to do it. And that excitement might last for the first. Oh, I died. Oh well. I'm not quite done talking, so I might start a new world. Maybe I'll play regular. Um, but unless you have a real strong passion for something, that is gonna the motivation to do well and to work hard, if you're not getting anything back from it, is gonna fade. You might last like a couple of years, but eventually the fact that the kids don't give a shit, most of them, and you're underpaid, you're overworked, it's just gonna weigh down on your spirit, unfortunately. And that really sucks. And I think some teachers are amazing enough that they push through that, but most of them are just trying to make a living like everybody else. But when it comes to the subject of education, I don't think we want people who just make a living. We want people who are really passionate about what they do and want to make a difference in the world. Because that's one of those jobs that is really, really important and totally unappreciated. I mean, you imagine then, like, say, the NASA space crew, they're giving, well, they weren't well funded. I'm not sure. Let's say during the space race, they certainly were. So they were given all the top people were chosen, and they studied years and years of mathematics, all the whole 9 yards, and they were top of the line, super smart, super passionate about what they were doing, and doing amazing work. And that kind of level of dedication should be applied to our teachers. And now I understand like that those kind of resources on a nationwide basis, they're just not available necessarily. But you know what? A lot of different countries are doing a lot better than we are in that regard. I can't remember exactly, but I mean, shit. I've said it a million times before, but the amount of defense spending in this country is just ludicrous compared to other countries. I mean, our global um, spending on defense, military weapons, all that stuff, is equal to the next. We're the largest in the entire uh, world, obviously, by a large margin. So much so that the next four countries don't even equal the next four largest countries spending on military don't equal ours. I mean, that's ridiculous. What are we defending ourselves against? We're, fighting wars that we don't need to be fighting in places that we shouldn't be, and et cetera, et cetera. And, there's just so many better uses for that money. And, that makes up the majority of our spending. Anyway, that's a different matter. I think that education is very important, and if teachers were just given the resources to teach to kids in a way that they actually get excited about learning, and giving the kids an environment where they are too, where they are able to discover on their own the things that they find interesting. And it took me a couple of years, but really I just love learning about that kind of stuff. And just despite that, I do love learning about stuff, but finding the motivation to do that is, I'm not like Goodwill Hunting where I, read a million books and like learn everything I can. like some sort of child prodigy. Like I would prefer to sit back, relax, and watch a video, play a video game. But every once in a while, I'll see something interesting and read about it, or think, man, I want to learn how to do that, and I'll learn how to do it, and have a great time doing it, obviously. But it does take work, and it takes a bit of effort, and sometimes you just want to relax, after a long work day. But the whole point of school, I think, is to give kids that environment where they are not forced to work necessarily, but are, a structured area for them to apply them their brains to learning. And that's what being a kid's all about. Because, adults, we're supposed to, in an ideal world, I think adulthood is applying the knowledge that you've learned in a field that you find the most interesting, and then contributing to society and therefore getting paid for it, and being able to have a house and food and clothing and stuff as a result of your interest and your contribution. And obviously that's totally idealistic, but as a kid, your job, your contribution to society is learning how to contribute. And I think that the way that we have it set up now is you're just contributing to the rat race. And maybe that's what, the big corporations or whatever want. Not to get all conspiracy theorist on you, but, having brainless kind of sheep are obviously good for corporations that just want to hire, mindless workers. But it really doesn't contribute much to society. And, I understand that there's only so much that all of us can do because there's so many people. It's not like we're a world of 100 people where everybody can make an amazing contribution to science and the world. But a, a contribution on a level of you don't need to like rise to the top of a corporation to be a success in life. I think just being who you are and doing something that you find even vaguely interesting. Like say you have a real interest in just the way that numbers work. You find it fascinating the way that and the fact that numbers exist at all. It's a human invention, and it's really cool. I've never been a big math guy, but I can appreciate the genius that's gone into building this system of mathematics. And so, your contribution to society, it may be that, you work as an accountant for some company, and, you balance their books and stuff, and you get to work with numbers all day, and hopefully the corporation that you're working for is one that, you can get behind. The whole thing about corporations, man, I think that some do good for the world, but then, there are some that are just out to make a profit or whatever. And obviously they're a corporation, they have to make money. But like think about if we're talking about idealism here, you know, like what would the ideals be? Like, you know, we don't want a corporation that makes ice ice cube trays and like in bright colors and sells them to people unless they're doing a really good job about it and making innovations. Because even something as insignificant as that, as long as they're being honest and open about it, I think it is a contribution to society. Something silly like an ice cube tray. Well, say they have a research and development department that, you know, makes comes up with a great new idea that makes people's lives easier and makes, the ice better in some way, and people are really jazzed about it and they just think that it's cool. Well, that's great. And being an accountant for something like that is I think, perfectly admirable. You know, a company that isn't just trying to milk all the money that it can out of people, but is actually trying to improve on the products that they have, and you know, trying to contribute to the world. And when it when a company has a lot of money, like you know, most big corporations today, putting that excess money to just charity, or you know, charitable work, and it can, you know, be for PR as well as whatever. But you know, in an ideal world, I think the companies that we have and the businesses try to contribute to society as much as the people do. And you know, if you now hopefully the problem is you can't you can't make everybody happy, and you know, there are jobs out there that people don't want to do, but they do them out of necessity because, like, ideal. I don't know why my game's lagging, by the way. It's kind of annoying. I'm gonna go to bed here pretty soon, but in an ideal society, like, everyone would get to do exactly what they want. But you know, you can't, like, the this number of people to do a certain job would be vastly skewed in the wrong direction. You know, like, I want to be a video game tester. Well, okay, so do 20% of the teenage population. And then, like, what percentage of people want to work in a fucking sewer? Like, probably 0.1%. And those guys are weird. We don't want to talk to them. And so, you know, then we have a bunch of jobs that aren't being filled. And that's no good. So the whole necessity of, you know, having money, I think, kind of does help to keep us in a functioning society, because we need people to work in those sewers and keep them running. But if nobody wants to do it, and nobody has to do it, then you know, we're kind of screwed. Now I think as the whole robot revolution comes about, and I do think that it's coming relatively quickly, um, you know, that's subject to change. Uh, you know, robots can do the sewer work and all the jobs that people don't want to do. And at that point, I think you're more likely to have an even distribution of interests for jobs that are created. And I mean, if we're talking way in the future, I think, you know, as long as we don't destroy the planet before we can do this, but having robots organize and pretty much run everything is a real possibility. And at that point, you know, think about how that changes society, because there will be no more jobs. Imagine that. So what do people do, and like, how do they exist? Really, I mean, it's hard to fathom just how different a society that would be, because you know, gone are the ways of money, unless we have some sort of national income type thing, which people have talked about as robots replace more and more jobs. And it's an interesting idea. But what value is money? I mean, you're basically saying at that point, okay, the government is giving every single person the ability to buy things that are created for virtually free by the robots. Because imagine if robots literally took care of everything. They were self-replicating, self-repairing. They mined the resources themselves, and they didn't need any human input. And barring the, you know, robot revolution where they take over, imagine if they actually, you know, didn't do that, it just worked fine. You know, we're talking about a world where all labor is free. So, like, what is money? Money is, you know, originally a substitute for goods and services. So instead of going to the store and um, I wanna buy your finest hat, please. I'll trade you, a week's worth of carpentry. I'll build you a desk. Well, I don't need a desk. Got anything else to trade? The whole idea of money is that people can do things that aren't necessarily practical for money, like yodeling in the street, say, and then they can turn that into, whatever they want. And it's a good idea. But so what doesn't really make sense is all the goods are produced for free, and so the money is more like just a cap on how much you can get per month or per week or whatever. Like I'm gonna use my monthly stipend on buying, hats this month. Well, okay, but it's like, what if you want more than one hat? And then what are you gonna do with all the hats when you die? And it's just a I know this is kind of weird what I'm saying, but uh, I'm just, I'm just trying my best to vocalize the changes that society would have if literally everything was done for free and humans just sort of sat around doing nothing. And obviously, there is a limit to the amount of resources that the planet has. So, say in that society you have a robot that organizes your life affairs, and you can just do whatever you want. Uh, say you say to your robot butler, I feel like I want to go skydiving this weekend. And he says, I'm happy to oblige. Well, think about the resources that go into something like that. You got the plane, the fuel, and the, plane upkeep, and parts rust, and things decay. And so unless our recycling, matter cannot be created or destroyed. It can undergo changes, but it can't disappear unless it's blasted off of our planet and out into space. It's going to stay here. So unless we learn like advanced alchemy or uh, like perfect recycling programs, eventually we're just going to run out of stuff. Now, obviously, the universe operates on a principle of equivalent exchange. Uh, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. But, and so this raises philosophical arguments too, because, the whole concept of the Big Bang or whatever, and the universe is hot. There's energy in the universe. The whole universe is energy, but it's losing energy. If you think about it, there's really no source of energy in the universe. You know, well, not that we know of. In that, just endless amounts of energy pours out and it's created. Energy is not created, and energy is lost. Because, I mean, if you think about it in terms of kinetics, you roll a ball down a hill and it rolls into another ball, and then it rolls into another ball. Eventually, those balls are going to come to rest. And scientists have talked about this, but the heat death of the universe, obviously, it's not for trillions and trillions of years, but it is an eventuality, assuming that, whatever, God or however the universe was formed isn't formed again in some way, and more energy is added. So, the origin of that energy is really an interesting philosophical and scientific question. But, so we are approaching, well, we're not approaching. Um, the heat death of the universe is an eventuality, regrettably, um, but we won't be around, obviously, when that happens. But so think about all the energy on Earth. Well, we get it from the sun. I mean, literally. Well, there's geothermal too, I suppose. So there's energy at the core of the Earth, but all the other energy really comes from the sun. I mean, if you think about all of our forms of fuel, even oil and gas, that came from the sun in that, dinosaurs and trees millions of years ago consumed leaves, which were then consumed by bigger dinosaurs in the form of meat. But from the very beginning, it started with the sun and the whole photosynthesis, the primordial soup. What do you think the first single-celled organisms ate? Well, they either got their nutrients from the sun or they ate something that was grown from the sun. You know, that's where all the energy comes from. And geothermal vents, because the core of the Earth is very hot, and heat is energy, movement of atoms and particles. So, um, oh fuck, I'm starving. This always happens. I have 29 gold and I have no food. Oh, I do have a morsel. I'll cook that up real quick. So, we're losing heat and energy gradually, and we're also losing matter. If you think about how many millions of years it took to form all this oil, and we use so much of it on a daily basis, we're going to run out of oil eventually. And what some people don't realize is oil is used in a lot more than just cars and gasoline. Oil's used as, it makes plastic. So many things are made of plastic, and that comes from oil, you know? So what are we going to do when we run out? Well, I guess we'll move to the next resource. But, what happens when that runs out? There's only so many steel mines and copper mines and all this stuff. And, a lot of that stuff, as it decays, and you can recycle a lot of it, to be fair. Like steel and metals especially are easy to recycle, but stuff like plastic, a lot of the matter is lost in the recycling process. Not lost as in destroyed, because that's impossible, but lost to the atmosphere in the forms of fumes and the chemical composition changes. So, what kind of freaks me out, and rightfully so, is that the whole world is limited in its resources. And so one day we're gonna run out of stuff, and I don't think it's anytime soon, because the Earth is very big, but there's only so much room on this planet, and there's only so many resources that we can get, and that's where the idea of interplanetary travel comes in, I think, and maybe even interdimensional travel, because some people theorize the multiverse theory, that there are an infinite number of universes. Well, that means an infinite number of resources too. And, this universe can easily take resources from a universe that is devoid of life, without hurting anybody else, because there's literally an infinite amount. So, and for one person, it doesn't make any difference. But that's like really high tech science, obviously, and it might not even be true. So, hopefully we discover a way to travel between planets and ship resources between planets before we run out of stuff, or we learn better recycling. And we have to watch the whole overpopulation issue too, because as strict, and it seems like the one-child policy is like an attack on freedom, but really it's just self-preservation of the human race, because the planet can only hold so many human bodies. There's not enough room for everybody to have 4 kids. It's exponential growth, man. You're gonna totally run out of room very quickly if everyone just breeds as much as they want to. Which is a shame. And so part of our responsibility is realizing that we have to accept, if we want to live in a society where resources aren't, fought after, and, anarchy reigns, we have to accept that we have certain limitations on our freedom. Because even if it doesn't seem like we're hurting anybody, having 4 children does hurt people, in ways that we can't immediately understand in our, immediate vicinity. And so that's the role of a government, really. A government body is to research that and make those decisions for people. As bad as that sounds, I mean, I'm definitely a supporter of freedom, and I think that you should be able to do whatever the hell you want. But at the same time, like, we're limited in the amount of things that we have and space that we have, and somebody's got to step in and say, look, this isn't going to work. Otherwise, overpopulation comes to the point where we don't have enough food, we don't have enough space or energy or resources, and then everybody ends up killing each other, and anarchy. There's just not enough stuff to support um, a growing world like that. And so, as awful as it seems, we do need to sacrifice some of those freedoms to continue living in a society where I can walk to the grocery store and buy myself a burger if I want, or do whatever. I can go out to eat and buy products that are made and enjoy living in a world where those things are readily accessible, and I don't have to fight people for them. And that's pretty good to me. And if that means I can only have one kid, well, you know, it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Yeah. Anyway, I'm feeling kind of tired, and my voice is getting tired, so I might call it there. Thanks for watching me run around and pick up rocks for an hour and a half. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see you in the next video. So, have a good night, and God bless you all. How do I stop recording? I forgot the shortcut. There we go.